Hey, this is Derek Jordan. Thank you for joining us today on the World Fusion Show, where we bring you the leading innovators in world fusion music. Today, my guest is Kaoru Watanabe, who is a flute player, taiko drummer, and composer, and has done really interesting work with many groups, traditional Japanese groups, and also other groups around the world. Welcome, Kaoru Watanabe, to the World Fusion Show.
Thanks, Derek. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, it's my pleasure. And your music is very interesting. And you were born in the U.S., but you've really gone deeply into your traditional Japanese roots. Tell us a little bit about your background.
My parents were both born and raised in Tokyo, and they studied classical music. And they ended up coming to the United States in the 60s, late 60s. And they ended up joining the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra, fresh out of graduate school, and spent 44 years there. So I grew up in a household with two classical music playing Japanese parents who primarily spoke English to me and my brother. I was very American. I skateboarded and I played Western classical flute growing up. Didn't speak Japanese. Didn't really follow a lot of Japanese customs around the house. But I also played the Japanese drum, taiko, in a local children's group, without proper training or a real understanding of what the instruments were about, but just as an after school activity. So I had that as growing up, but I was really getting more and more focused on classical music and then eventually jazz music throughout my adolescence and my teenage years. I ended up going to Manhattan School of Music as a jazz flute, eventually saxophone player as well. And it was during my 4 years at Manhattan School of Music where I was really getting, deep into the music of Miles Davis and John Coltrane and Eric Dolphy and Louis Armstrong and trying to really understand the history of Black American music, that I started to question my understanding of my own heritage and my own music, whatever that would be, my own meaning, the music of my culture, my heritage, a culture that, again, I didn't really know about, this Japanese culture. And then during my time at Manhattan School of Music, the group Kodo, 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 it's a very, perhaps the most acclaimed taiko ensemble from Japan, did a concert at Carnegie Hall. And I went with a bunch of friends, and my mind was just really blown open. It was this performance art that I've never, especially after I did see them once as a kid, and I didn't really understand anything at that point. But then when I saw them as an adult, as I was questioning, my cultural identity and my musical identity, seeing them was just really like seeing a whole new universe. It was really that in that moment of seeing that concert, I was like, I need to go to Japan. I need to, and perhaps joining this group or studying with this group was kind of the key, was going to be the gateway for me to understand all these questions that were burning in my head. And I heard about the apprenticeship, the Kodo apprenticeship. It's a 2-year program. And it just seemed like that was it. It was just all the answers were going to be there. So I went, I auditioned, I got in, and from there I spent 2 years living on Sado Island. It's a very rural island with basically nothing but rice fields and mountains and surrounded by the ocean. And I spent 2 years there, waking up every morning, 6 days a week, at the crack of dawn and running 6 miles, and then working on woodworking and growing rice and tea ceremony, and learning about Sado and Japanese history and culture, flora and fauna, as well as, of course, a lot of drumming, a lot of dancing, as much dancing as drumming, folk dancing, a lot of singing, as well as, of course, the Japanese flutes and shamisen and other Japanese instruments. So it's a quintessential Japanese deep cultural dive. Like I was, perhaps more than a kid growing up in Tokyo, really understanding like old Japanese ways and traditions and cultures.
Yeah,
Um,
it's incredible. Very rigorous training for sure.
very, very
I'd like you to introduce our video, which
hmm,
is you playing flute and taiko. Uh,
yes.
so tell us about this.
It's a video. I was traveling, was performing in Denver, and I had some time off, and I just was kind of walking around nature in the middle of the winter, and I found some beautiful spots, and I was inspired to play some music, and so I put together some of the music that I created during there, and then as well as recording later some taiko percussion. In my studio in Brooklyn, in New York.
All right, that's great. Let's go to the video right now. Hey, we are back with Kaoru Watanabe. So, you've done quite a bit of touring with your music. Tell us about that.
It's been an incredible journey after I spent 10 years total with Kodo, seeing the world, all over Europe, all over every prefecture in Japan I've visited, and then all over the States, Canada, of course. After leaving Kodo, I've done many projects with a lot of different collaborators. One of the latest ones right before the pandemic was one of the top flamenco dancers in Spain, Eva Buena. And just working with her and getting deep into her culture has been extraordinary. Working with Wuman, a Chinese pipa player for many, touring with her, and as well as with my own projects. I have various trios and solo projects that I do. It's been really gratifying. Mongolian musicians, Korean musicians. So yeah, it's been so gratifying. It really gives me a different perspective on how the approach to music and of life and philosophy.
Yeah, and I know you're also working with Silk Road.
Yes, one of the tours that got canceled right in 2020 was with Yo-Yo Ma, a tour of Asia with Silk Road, and that would have been really special for me. Another thing that just got canceled as well, which is still kind of continuing, is I was commissioned by Mikhail Baryshnikov, the dancer, to write basically an opera for him, and the music was created. Everything was pretty much ready to go. It was written for 2 opera singers and myself playing multiple instruments and cello, violin, and viola. And that got canceled as well. Hopefully it'll come back together, but there's a lot of, just again, working with great artists has been such a rewarding experience for me.
Oh yeah. We're going to go to our next video. Tell us quickly about what we're going to see.
So right after I left Kodo, after 10 years of playing very structured concerts and music, I moved back to New York City, and I wanted to explore more improvisation and experimental modes of music making. And one of the first collaborators I had was a man named Nakatani Tatsuya, and he's a percussionist. He doesn't play Taiko or Japanese percussion. He's a Japanese person who plays percussion. And you'll see it in the video. He has a whole vocabulary of his own techniques and sounds that he creates. So this is an improvisation I did. I'm playing Nokan, which is the flute from No Theater, Kabuki Theater, and improvising with Tatsuya.
All right, let's go to the video right now. Kaoru Watanabe. So I wanted to just ask you a little bit about some of your solo projects. We're going to watch a video in a few moments where you are doing some live looping. So tell us about what you're doing with that stuff.
So during the pandemic, as most of us were, where I was stuck in my studio by myself, and being a multi-instrumentalist, I was always trying to figure out ways to where I could play all these instruments that I'm playing in a way that felt organic and using all the techniques that I usually use. And Ableton and looping technology it was kind of an obvious answer. So I was able to spend a lot of time practicing it, just like I would practice any other instrument. And I created a whole repertoire of music that I could do solo, which features improvisation, taiko, flute, all the percussion, atarigane, binzasara, and suzu, these different Japanese instruments, as well as koto. I'm a self-taught koto player. It's almost embarrassing because I have many expert koto player friends, but I just use koto. It's a Japanese zither. And so the video we're going to watch is a piece that I kind of co-created with my partner, UDA, and it's called Merge, and it's about merging lives and merging experiences and it's basically a love song for Merge, for UDA, and you'll hear her voice in it as well.
Oh, great. Let's go to the video right now.
踏みとどまること、止まらないこと、耐えること、耐えないこと、幸せでなくてはと思うこと、健やかでなくてはと思うこと、生きていることが愛しているということ、生きていることが愛しているということ、生きていることが愛しているということ。When you realize who you are, finding relief in how you evolve, to clearly see your reflection in someone else's eyes.
All right, we are back with Kaoru Watanabe. So I wanted to ask you about your philosophy of music and what you feel like your purpose is in bringing your music to the world.
I've had, I would say, a very particular combination of experiences in my life, going, as a child, going deep as I could as a child into classical music, and then as, going to college for American Black jazz music, and then going to Japan and living there and working with the top Japanese artists, and going deep into that world. And then since then, working with orchestras and string quartets and people like Baryshnikov and Yo-Yo Ma and Wes Anderson, and this combination is always challenging me to find authenticity in both representing Japanese music, representing myself as an artist, as an individual. For a long time, I would shy away from the word authenticity because I think of authentic practitioners of traditional Japanese music, for example, many that I know. But thinking about what that means to me is authentic. What is real to me? What is not conforming to some sort of expectation of what music is or what should be, but something that feels organic and real to me. It's been a challenging and a lot of ups and downs in that, but for me, always finding that authentic sound and representing all the worlds that are on my shoulder is really what I've tried to be true to.
Yeah.
In my music.
I'd like to go to our next video, which is you and playing flute with tabla tarang, and tell us a little bit about this.
So it's a trio. It's a collective trio with the tabla player and drum set jazz drummer Samir Gupta, as well as the Brazilian percussionist named Rogério Bocato. And we have a trio called Borogusa Kagu, which translates as old, rotten, dirty furniture. But it's also, if you take the names, Rogério Bocato and Samir Gupta, the first syllable of each of our first and last names and my name, and you cram them together in a funny way, it's Borogusa Kagu. So it's irreverent, but it's I think authentic to ourselves. It's Brazilian, Indian, Japanese, jazz, New York, everything is in there. All are great improvisers, great composers, and we just get together and try to have these really in the moment conversations. So
it's really certainly world fusion, that's for sure. Okay, let's go to the video right now. We are back. Kaoru Watanabe, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the World Fusion Show and sharing your music with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
All right, you take care. Hey, this is Derek Jordan. Thank you for joining us today on the World Fusion Show. It's been great to have you, and we've got so many great shows coming up. So please help us spread the word and get this out to your friends on social media. We're really trying to spread the joy and wonderful nature of world fusion music everywhere. I want to say thank you to our great sponsors, Mackenzie Family Charitable Trust, Ron Dans, Chris Pratt, and Nancy Feinberg for their generous support. And also, remember, as we always say, think globally, listen locally, and support independent music.